Julian Hawthorne sat at a corner table in Laurence, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. He checked his watch, 7:15. She was 15 minutes late. Julian was 43 years old, and the CEO of Hawthorne Capital, a venture capital firm he had built from nothing over 20 years. He was worth over $300 million, featured regularly in business magazines, considered one of the most successful investors of his generation. He was also alone. Not that he minded. Julian had convinced himself years ago that relationships were a distraction. They required time. He did not have emotional energy. He could not spare in his world. Success meant sacrifice, and he had sacrificed everything for his company. But his sister Vanessa had been relentless. You need to at least try, Julian, one date. Just one. What is the worst that could happen? Julian had finally agreed just to get Vanessa to stop one blind date. Then she would leave him alone. The woman Vanessa had set him up with was supposedly perfect for him, intelligent, accomplished, someone who understood the demands of a high-powered career. Julian did not care. He would sit through dinner, be polite, and then return to his life. A woman appeared at the entrance, but she was not who Julian was expecting. She was younger, maybe late 20s, dressed in a simple beige dress, carrying a worn leather bag. She looked around the restaurant, clearly out of place in this elegant setting. The maitre d' approached her. Julian could not hear the conversation, but he saw her gesture point toward his table. The maitre d' looked confused, then nodded as the woman walked toward him. Julian felt irritation rise. This was not the woman Vanessa described. Not even close. "Hi," the woman said. Her voice was soft. "Are you Julian?" "Yes," he said, his tone cold. "And you are?" The woman sat down. "I am Harper Collins." Julian waited for more explanation. None came. "I think there has been a mistake." "Said I was supposed to meet someone else." Harper bit her lip. "I know I am sorry. Let me explain." Julian checked his watch again. "You have 2 minutes. Harper took a breath. "Your sister Vanessa. She works with my friend Olivia. Olivia was supposed to be here tonight, but she got called away, family emergency. She asked me to come explain, to apologize." Julian felt relief. So this was not even the date, just a messenger. Fine, message delivered. "You can go." Harper did not move. "Actually, what Olivia asked if I would. She paused. "If I would stay. Just so you did not waste the evening." Julian stared at her. "You cannot be serious." Harper's face reddened. "I know it sounds strange, but Olivia felt terrible, and I have not been out in a while. I thought maybe." Julian held up his hand. "Let me understand this. You are a substitute date, a fill-in." Harper, look down when you say it like that. It sounds bad. It is bad." Julian said. "It is insulting." He stood. "Tell your friend I appreciate the gesture, but I am leaving." Julian. He turned back. Harper was still sitting, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I am sorry," she said. "Olivia was right. This was a terrible idea. I should not have come." Something in her voice made Julian pause. "Why did you come? I mean," Harper shrugged. "Olivia said you were a good person, that you deserved better than being stood up," and honestly, she looked around the restaurant. "I have never been anywhere like this. I thought it might be nice to pretend for one evening that I belonged somewhere elegant." Julian felt his irritation fade slightly. He sat back down, sighing. 1 hour. "Then I am leaving." Harper's face brightened. "Thank you." They ordered food. The conversation was awkward at first. Julian asked the usual questions. "What do you do?" Harper worked as a nurse, pediatric ward at City General Hospital. "Where do you live?" "A small apartment on the west side." "Nothing fancy." "Do you have family?" "Just my mom. She has early onset dementia. I take care of her." Julian found himself surprised by her answers. She was not what he expected. There was no pretense, no attempt to impress him. She was just honest. After a while, Harper asked, "What about you? What do you do?" Julian gave his standard response. "I run an investment firm. We provide capital to emerging companies." Harper nodded. "That sounds important." Julian shrugged. "It is lucrative." Harper tilted her head. "But is it fulfilling?" The question caught him off guard. "It is what I am good at. That is not what I asked." Harper said gently. Julian felt defensive. "I have built something substantial. I employ over 100 people. I have helped launch dozens of successful companies. Harper smiled. But does it make you happy? Julian set down his fork. Why does everyone assume happiness is the goal? Maybe success is enough. Harper's expression was thoughtful. I think that is sad. What is that? You have convinced yourself those things are different. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Julian asked, what about you? Are you happy? Harper considered most days. Yes, my work is hard, emotionally draining. I watch children suffer. Sometimes I cannot save them. But when I can, when I help a child get better, go home to their family, those moments, she paused. Those moments make everything worth it. Julian found himself listening, really listening, not just waiting for his turn to talk. What about your mother? Julian asked. That must be difficult. Harper's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. It is the hardest thing I have ever done, watching someone you love. Forget who you are. Forget who they are. But I would not change it. She is my mom. She took care of me my whole life. Now it is my turn. Julian felt something unfamiliar, respect, maybe even admiration. This woman with her simple dress and worn bag, she had more depth than anyone he had met in years. The hour passed. Then another. Julian found himself talking, really talking about his company, about the pressure, about how he had spent 20 years building something impressive, but somewhere along the way he had stopped enjoying it. Harper listened, without judgment, just presence. When do you feel most alive? Harper asked. Julian thought. About it, I do not know. Maybe when I close a big deal, when I know I have won. Harper shook her head. That is when you feel successful. I am asking when you feel alive. Julian could not answer. Finally he said, when I was younger, I used to paint nothing professional, just for myself. I would lose hours, completely absorbed. I felt free. When did you stop? Harper asked. When I started the company. No time for hobbies. Julian said it casually, but hearing it out loud, it sounded hollow. Harper reached across the table, her hand gently touching his. That is what you have lost, not time but yourself. Julian looked at her hand on his small, delicate but steady. Who are you? He asked quietly. Harper smiled. Just someone who showed up. By the time they left the restaurant, it was nearly 11. Julian walked Harper to the street to get her a cab. She protested, I can take the bus. Not at this hour. Julian said he hailed a taxi before she got in. Harper turned to him. Thank you for tonight. I know it was not what you planned, but I had a really nice time. Julian surprised himself. So did I. Harper smiled, then hesitated. Can I tell you something? Of course I think you are lonely. Harper said, not because you are alone, but because you have forgotten how to let people in. The words hit Julian like a physical blow because they were true. Harper continued. You have built walls so high that no one can reach you, not even yourself. Julian could not speak. Harper got into the cab. She rolled down the window. If you ever want to remember who you used to be before all of this, call me. She handed him a piece of paper with her number. Then the cab drove away. Julian stood on the sidewalk for a long time, looking at the number, thinking about what she said. The next morning, Julian went to his office as usual, but he could not concentrate. He kept thinking about Harper, about her questions, about the way she looked at him, not impressed by his success, but concerned about his happiness. His assistant interrupted his thoughts. Mr. Hawthorne, your 11 o'clock is here. Julian nodded, but before the meeting he did something unexpected. He called his sister, Vanessa. Answered immediately. Julian, I heard what happened. I am so sorry about the mix-up. I do not care about that. Julian said, tell me about Harper. What Harper Collins? Who is she? There was a pause. Why, just tell me. Vanessa sighed. She is Olivia's best friend. She is a nurse, takes care of her mom. She has no money, works constantly. She is one of the kindest people I have ever met. Why do you ask? Julian was not sure how to answer. I am not sure. Over the next week, Julian tried to focus on work, but he kept finding himself thinking about their conversation, about what Harper had said about the painting he used to do, about the version of himself he had lost. Finally, he called her. Hello, Harper. It is Julian. There was a pause. Julian, hi, He did not know what to say. I would like to see you again. Why? Julian thought about it. Because I think you might be right about... What about me? There was a smile in her voice. Okay, when they met for coffee, then dinner, then a walk in the park. Harper did not fit into Julian's world. She did not care about business, did not understand. Venture capital had never heard of half the companies he invested in, but she asked him questions. No one else asked, "What makes you smile? When was the last time you did something just for fun?" If money was not an issue, what would you do with your life? Julian found himself thinking about these questions, realizing he did not have good answers. One evening, Harper invited him to her apartment. It was small, one-bedroom worn furniture, but it was warm, filled with photos and books and life. Julian met Harper's mother, a woman in her early 60s who looked at him with confusion. "Mom, this is my friend." Julian, Harper's mother, smiled politely. "Nice to meet you." Then she turned to Harper. "Is dinner ready? We just ate, Mom." Harper said gently, "Remember we had pasta." Her mother looked confused. "Did we?" Harper was patient, kind. Julian watched her help her mother to the couch, settle her with a blanket and the television in the kitchen. Julian said, "How do you do this every day?" Harper shrugged. "What choice do I have? She is my mom, but it must be exhausting." "It is," Harper admitted. "But love is not supposed to be easy. It is supposed to be worth it." Julian felt something shift inside him. He realized he had spent 20 years pursuing success, but he had never asked if it was worth it. Over the next months, Julian and Harper continued to see each other. Julian's colleagues were confused. "She is not in your league." One of his partners said, "What does that even mean?" Julian asked. "She has nothing. Harper has everything that matters." Julian said his partner looked at him like he was crazy. Harper encouraged Julian to start painting again. She bought him supplies, set up an easel in his apartment. At first he resisted. "I do not have time, make time." Harper said, "You have spent 20 years building a company. Surely you can spare 2 hours a week for yourself." So Julian painted, and for the first time in years he felt something other than stress or pressure. He felt joy one evening. 6 months after their first date, Harper asked him something. "Julian, do you love me?" Julian was surprised. "Where is this coming from?" Harper looked down. "I need to know because I love you. And if this is not going anywhere, I need to protect my heart." Julian took her hand. He stopped. The truth was he did love her. But saying it felt terrifying. Loving someone meant being vulnerable, meant risking something he could not control. "Yes," he said finally, "I love you." Harper smiled, her eyes filling with tears. "Good, because I was really hoping you did." They got married a year later. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Julian's business associates were shocked. "She is so ordinary." One of them said. Julian smiled. "That is what makes her extraordinary." Harper did not change Julian's life by making it more comfortable. She changed it by making him uncomfortable. She challenged him, made him question what he valued, made him realize that success without connection was hollow. 2 years after they married, Harper's mother passed away. Julian held Harper as she cried. "I knew it was coming," she said, "but I am still not ready. No one ever is." Julian said, "I am proud of you for loving her the way you did, for being there, for showing me what it means to really care about someone." Harper looked up at him. "You showed me too." "How? By letting me in." Julian said, "I spent years convinced I did not need anyone. You proved me wrong." 5 years after their first date, Julian made a decision. He stepped down as CEO of Hawthorne Capital. His partners thought he was insane. "You are walking away from millions." Julian smiled. "I am walking toward something better." He stayed on the board, provided guidance, but he was no longer consumed by the company. Instead, he and Harper started a foundation. They funded pediatric care for families who could not afford it, built playrooms in hospitals, supported nurses with scholarships. Julian painted more. He and Harper traveled not to luxury resorts, but to places with meaning. They volunteered together, spent time with people who needed help. Julian's old colleagues could not understand. "You had everything," one of them said. "Why give it up?" "I did not give anything up," Julian replied. "I traded something valuable for something priceless." One evening, Julian and Harper sat on their porch watching the sunset. "Do you remember our first date?" Julian asked. Harper laughed. "You mean when I was the substitute, the fill-in?" Julian took her hand. You were never a fill-in. You were exactly who I needed, even if I did not know it. Harper leaned against him. I think about that night sometimes, about how close I came to not going. What changed your mind? Harper smiled. Olivia said you needed someone, and I thought maybe I need someone too. They sat in comfortable silence. Julian thought about the path that had led him here, the blind date. He almost canceled the woman who showed up. Instead, the conversation that changed. Everything he had spent 20 years building an empire, but it took one evening with Harper to realize that empire was empty. Success meant nothing without someone to share it with. Wealth was worthless if you had no one to spend it on. All the accolades and achievements in the world could not replace the feeling of being truly seen, of being loved, not for what you had accomplished, but for who you were. Harper had not been impressed by his money or his status or his success. She had looked past all of that and seen a lonely man who had forgotten how to live. She had not tried to change him, she had just loved him. And in loving him, she had given him permission to change himself. Julian kissed the top of her head. Thank you for what Harper asked, for showing up. Harper smiled. Best decision I ever made, best thing that ever happened to me. Julian said they watched the sun disappear below the horizon, two people who had found each other by accident, or maybe by design. Either way, they had found what they did not know they were looking for. Not perfection, but presence. Not success, but significance. Not wealth, but worth. And that Julian thought was everything. If this story resonated with you, please like and share it with someone who needs to remember that the best things in life are not things at all. Subscribe for more stories about love, connection, and finding what truly matters. Leave a comment telling us about a time an unexpected person changed your perspective. Sometimes the people who transform us are the ones we never saw coming. Thank you for listening.